Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Koskinen, do you think a legal doctrine that allows law enforcement officials at either the federal or state level to confiscate a family's cash, car, home, or business without ever being charged with the crime is a good thing? It's just a yes or no.
That's what the law is. The law says if you violate the structuring law,
please, you don't need to build me a watch. Just tell me what time it is. Is it yes or no?
I'm sorry, the question
all right, here's my point. We are seizing people's assets because we think they may have done something wrong. We're talking about due process here.
There has to be a probable cause finding by a U.S. attorney.
Yeah, and you can define probable cause anyway. If somebody's selling corn and tomatoes, it's the same as a member of a terrorist group, okay? Now, if you look up on the wall here, because this is what I believe is going on. This is extortion. The practice of obtaining money, property, or services through coercion, force, or threats is synonymous with a shakedown. Now, I know that really rankles the IRS, and it should. But it should not just rankle the IRS. It should rankle every single American, because you know what? We all work for the same people. We're all trying to get to the same end. This isn't grilling you for the sake of grilling you. This is the fact that Americans' rights have been taken from them by an agency that somehow equates a guy who gets up at 12:30 in the morning to milk cows is the same as a guy who structures some type of a scheme in order to be a terrorist.
And that's why we changed the policy.
Listen, I'm not asking you about that. I'm going to ask Mr. Weber. So when you sit down, Mr. Weber, with the people you work with, do you all sit down and say, sometimes we look at what we do, and I think that we're really far from where we're supposed to be. Do you ever do a best practices or a worst practices?
Yeah, that's why I changed the policy a year and a half ago.
Okay, but now all those folks that you have under some type of, you've deemed under a possible structure, you've seized their assets, right?
We don't seize based upon a possible structuring, Congressman. What we do is we work with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
They haven't been convicted in anything,
and they don't have to be pursuant to the law that's been on the books for 30 years. So what we do is we go to the U.S. Attorney's Office, sir. We get a warrant signed by a judge.
I understand. It's wrong. It's wrong. You can say hey, just because it's a law doesn't make it right.
Right.
It's wrong. You know it's wrong, and the people you work with know it's wrong. So what I would suggest is you do the same type of a look inside that Congress does of what is it that we're doing that actually is hurting people, how are we keeping people from reaching the American dream, and shouldn't we maybe turn around and fix it? I'm not coming after you because I don't like you. I'm coming after you because this is absolutely insane that we have to have a committee meeting to talk about people who are being wronged. Their assets are being seized. You keep their money. In some cases, they get some of it back. In some cases, they get none of it back. Who determines that? In some cases, we say to them, hey, you know what? Give me 50 cents and $1 and you can go away. You're seizing money from real people, Americans. These are not people who are terrorists. These are not people who are running some kind of a drug chain, and you know it. You know it. There's an article in the Washington Post I'd like to put in, Mr. Chairman, and it does have to do with the asset seizures fueling police spending. And I know, Mr. Koskinen, it was only $22 or $23 million, and honest to God, back where I'm from, that's a lifetime of ultimate success, okay? So it's not peanuts.
It's a very
But here's what I
different
get to, though.
situation
Listen,
than
I want to tell you something. When we can get to the point that we look at each other and decide we're going to do what's right for the American people, not that somehow people are going to ask you gotcha questions, because I know that's what happened to the Taylors and the Sowers. It was all gotcha stuff. People come in, sit down at your kitchen table, have a glass of iced tea, talk a little bit about this, a little bit about that. The next thing you know, you better have a lawyer the next time we talk. And the meter starts to run, and it continues to run, and it continues to run. And you know the people who don't have to worry about picking up the tab on the bill? You all. The same people that fund you fund all the different legal activity. Every single penny comes from hardworking American taxpayers. Mr. Weber, please, I'm talking to you. I know you don't want to look at me on this, and I understand that. I understand that, but here's what I want to get to. There has to be some point in time that we do the right thing for the American people, because that's basically who we are. That's the very fabric of who we are as a people. Just as a biblical reference, when David went in to fight the Philistines, you know why David went to fight the Philistines? Because he went to feed his army, the Israelite army, that was afraid to go into the valley against Goliath, because Goliath was so big. Goliath was so intimidating. Nobody would go out. David, his dad says, hey, take corn, take water. They need your help. He goes there, and you know what he finds? Nobody in the army is willing to go into the valley. Nobody. And you know what David says? He goes out himself, and you know what he declares? Is there not a just cause? Is there not a cause? And I would hope that each member of the IRS understands that we're not painting you all as being bad people, But you are having a dramatic effect and a negative effect on the American people. And I think, as Kenny just talked about, when we, as a government, no longer stand up for the rights of individuals and freedom, we have turned our back on 1.4 million people in uniform that gave their lives that we could practice our type of government today. This is not coming after the IRS because we don't like you. This is coming after the IRS because you have hurt our people together, all of us. And I think that's the thing that we have to start understanding. It is not a me versus you. It's not you versus the American people. But at some point, doesn't somebody say, is there not a cause? And can we not take a wrong and make it a right? You don't pay them for loss of income. You don't pay them interest. You don't pay them for damage to their reputation. What you do is say, hey, we may give you some of it back. Maybe we won't. Depends how I'm feeling. Okay. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing about it's legal. There's a hell of a difference between what's legal and what's right. You all know that. I know it. I've suffered it in my personal business life. And that's why we're here. This is America's house, representing every single American, including every member of the IRS, by the way. I do appreciate your service, but I think when we realize that we're doing the wrong thing, stand up and just say, we were wrong and we're going to make it right. That's so basic in what we believe as Americans. It just is so fundamental, and there truly is a cause. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.